Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to your daily lighting critique. So today I want to start off with answering a question off the top. So the question was posed in the forum about eye dings and character eye lighting. And the question was basically like, if we set it up so that the eye ding appears in a certain part of the eye on a certain frame, what do we do when the character is animated? And this is a very common question. And there's kind of three different ways that you can approach how the final look. There's a million ways you can approach achieving this look, but there are kind of three different ways you can approach it. So let's look at this character just for a second. So what we could do is, you got your eye ding, like you'll position your eye ding here. And if the character in the next frame kind of turns his head and looks the other way, again, three ways that you can handle it. Number one, you can do something like literally paint the eye ding into the eye so that it's always stuck to the eye no matter where he looks in any direction. There's this perfect little eye ding that always exists there. That's number one. That is emphasizing the look of the character over the believability of the lighting of the scene. There's step two, which is make it more realistic, which is as the light looks around, the eye ding stays exactly stationary no matter where the eye is looking, and the reflections in the eye are the same. And that is much more photorealistic, but can get you into trouble if the character happens to look in the wrong spot. The third way is kind of a hybrid approach, which is kind of the way I tend to do it, which is you will lock it in. You basically lock in the location of the ding and the surrounding elements until the character blinks. And then once the character blinks, you can kind of shift things around because it is something that you notice with your characters is as they kind of look around, animators will often animate a character blinking as they move their head quickly or blinking as they look over here. It's just kind of, I don't know that I don't know if that's like an animation rule, but it's just something that I found. So you can hide all kinds of movements in the blinks. So again, she's looking off over here. So as she's kind of posed looking off this way, we can keep the dings right in that location. But the second she blinks and swings her head around this way, we'll animate the position of those dings. What if it's in the comp, we will set a keyframe and nuke. If it's in the render where you have you're actually reflecting something, you just shift the location of those dings, and because really it's like then you're kind of crafting it for the best look on each pose of the character without it being too disorienting for the audience. I would encourage you, if you guys want to see what it looks like for the eye dings to track with the eyes, just check out scenes from the Peanuts movie. I spent a large chunk of my life for like a year just animating the position of eye dings to follow Snoopy and Charlie Brown's eyes all over their head. And like the eye ding was different because their eye geometry was different, but it was just like it always matched the shape. It always was in the right location, but they were very particular that in every frame, on every pose, the ding was in that right spot. So, okay. So that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the rest of the critiques. But that's a great question, and I'm very happy I was able to answer that for you. But if you have questions, I realize that was an arrogant thing to say. If you had questions about my response, please let me know. All right. So let's start off here with Aaron. Aaron, this is a super, super fun take on this. So colorful, so bright. Let's take a look at your reference. All about saturation, all about saturated colors. Yeah, like, all about this disco scene from Toy Story. All underlight, lots of like fun little light rays. I see that you're talking about the soft roll off on the characters and the blurry background lanterns. Like, all super, super, super cool stuff. Oh, and then you got the sprinkles up there. I do really like the lanterns behind this. Do you see how these are like nice and glowy, but then there's like these points of light in there? I think that's really, really cool. But let's talk about this one here. Okay. So we've got, I love these streams of light coming up. I think they're super cool. I think they're positioned really well. I would tone the foregrounds ones down just a little bit. In terms of their density, I would make them a little bit less dense. In terms of the character lighting, I think she's looking good. It's a really good start. Her bright points are getting a little bit bright. Like the cucumber up here is very bright. The rice is like, there's very little shaping within that, so you'd have to kind of tone that down a little bit. Additionally, what's going on underneath her, it could be picked up a little bit with a little less saturation in there. So it's kind of balancing and bringing together the rice and her legs and stuff from the top and the bottom. These objects here in the foreground are so in the immediate foreground that we really need to take special care with them. Right now they just feel a little bit plasticky, and I didn't know if you wanted any kind of translucency or subsurface scattering or anything like that on there. But this is really, really beautiful. Just watch out. Oh, there's a little weird depth of field-y thing happening up here where this is, and maybe it's just my perception of it, but this looks super crisp, and then something on top of it is very blurry. Maybe that's just like way in the foreground, and I'm just not totally understanding that. I would also move this character over a little bit just so we can see the entirety of the silhouette of the main character. But yeah, the biggest things would be, let's soften the density on those. Let's get these white points more in tune with one another. It's totally fine that these are a little bit darker and a little bit more saturated, but just the extreme difference is a little much. Yeah, and then we'll go from there. But I think this is coming together well. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. All right, Annabelle. This looks great. I think that the only thing that I would do is try and add a little gobo or something just to kind of darken some of this ground right in this like mid-ground area. So it's like nice and bright around her. It gets a little darker in there, and then it can kind of fall off into the distance there. But that's all I would change. She looks great. Everything else is looking really, really, really great. And then again, and then I maybe just darken a little bit in this triangle there. But that's all I would do there. I think you've done a really brilliant job with this. Ashley. Okay, depth of field looks a lot better. Glowy orbs look pretty cool. The one thing is, this is tricky. So there is a nice warm wash over everything, but it's kind of, I almost want it to be a little bit less, I don't know if invasive is the right word, but like a little bit less kind of everywhere. I kind of, especially down here on the characters, what I want is, because it's kind of like lifting their values a little bit and not allowing us to really kind of make them feel nice and rich. So you know what, it might just be a matter of toning it down overall. I think the characters themselves look really good. I think this sushi on top, it's too bumpy. It needs to be like nice and kind of smooth with like a silky finish to it. It's got too much of a rough texture to it. Yeah, let's look at some reference of like tuna or salmon on top of a roll like that to get that nice smooth quality. Boom, 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 boom. So Aaron's cucumbers were a little bit too bright. These are a little bit too dim. I would lift those up just a little bit. And then the big thing I would work on for you is, I think that these characters on the ledge here could use a little bit of work. Just like, because they look, I mean, I like what you're doing by toning them down. I think your head's really I think you're really in the right spot, but they look kind of dusty. They're lacking any sort of specularity and just general, they could use some more shaping. So I do think that like they could get similar treatment to what these characters are getting in terms of like the light to dark fall if you just want them about half of the brightness. But I would like to just see a little bit more shaping coming across here and like a little bit less warmth. Like just kind of a universal warmth across them entirely. And they can get a little dimmer as they go back here. But just a little bit more life, a little more shaping on those guys would really do, I think would really improve it. So really good progress so far early and often. But let's see what we get to with the next iteration. Clarissa, this looks great. So somebody, I think Shane mentioned this. There's kind of two steps when you're integrating an object into CG space. I figure there's like two tiers when you're looking at it. Tier one is it believable as a shot? Like, do you look at it and immediately go, oh, that's CG, or does it cross that first threshold? And I think you've done that. I think like, you know, like if in the whatchamacallit, in the Discord channel, like when these images were small, it was hard to tell which one was the reference and which one was real. Like they look pretty good. But it's only upon like doing what I just did, which is like, doing a quick A/B test between them, to kind of compare what's different about them. Does that really start to stand out? So I think you're on to the next level. And what that next level is, like someone was saying, just adding a little bit of crumble in there. It's also, the white point in here is also pretty cool. Like in the shadows, it's almost like a bluish white, where if you look at the reference, it's a little bit warmer than that. So I would warm up your white values, especially in the shadow, at least neutralize them a little bit. And then the other big one is, and this actually surprises me, and this is one of the nice things about references, because like I would look at this and be like, yeah, no, I think that's what an Oreo looks like on top. But if you look at it with this glancing angle, it actually gets a lot more specularity on top of these two than I would ever anticipate. So I would go ahead and add a little bit, like try and up your specularity game up there, and see if that works out well. And then, really, it's just about getting that crumble on the edge and then a little bit in here too. Because other than that, I mean, these are pretty spot on. This is a really great, really a great challenge for yourself. And for anyone who's watching this, and thinks that this is easy to do, this is so tricky, even on a quote unquote simple object like an Oreo. Like I said, just like getting these white points to match up. Everything is tricky about doing stuff like this. So I think it's a great exercise, and I think you're killing it. And just some minor tweaks as we close it out. All right, Jordan. Yes, the boxes are looking a lot better. Still a little bit of super brightness there, but all in all, this is looking pretty good. I did see the comments of this coming down this way. The light rays should be decaying a little bit more. There's a few ways to do it. Like you could even, because it's a still frame, you could either get away with doing it kind of in 2D space, and just kind of, if you have the volumetric light rendered as a separate element, you could just create like a garbage mat like this, and then just blur up this edge and allow it to fall off that way. That's definitely not the ideal, but like I said, it's a still image. You might be able to get away with it. But I totally agree that, because it's not about the fact that there's God rays going too far into the room. It's that it's kind of clouding all of this and lifting the dark values and allowing us to, and kind of stealing some of the saturation out of the image. I would also expect, now that I'm looking at this, I would also expect that there would be a little bit more fill light on the top of his head there. Because if this light's here, because like this is theoretically a result of this, but then there's also that light coming in there. Yeah, I would try and get a little more fill light on the top of his head, almost like sky rim that's appearing on there. Yeah, good stuff, man. Really coming together. All right, so we've got your previous version and your updated one. Updated looks a lot better. You can see, you can just see how much you've shifted the values between those two. So there's that one, and there's that one. You can see there's a little bit more towards brightness. I was expecting that to be a little bit more dramatic, but you can see there's a little bit more brightness. So moving forward, the big things I'd like to see you work on is, number one, I'm realizing, because now that we've lifted this up a little bit, I'm realizing that we're missing the opacity on a lot of these. So these are cards that have grass painted on them, and then there should be an alpha channel in there as well. And the alpha channel is supposed to cut out all of this stuff and leave you with just the grass. So just make sure you see that, and make sure that to give it a try to try and eliminate that. It's in it is in, if you're using Arnold, it's in the I think it's geometry. I forget off the top of my head, but you want to look for adding an alpha image to the opacity channel of your shader to kind of get that to block out, because it won't, in Arnold, it won't do it by default. So there's that's number one. You're doing a good job of isolating the lights a little bit better. I like that the red is just kind of in the environment. There's a light coming on here, and I'm not fully sure of the source of it. Like looking at some of your reference, where'd it go? Like this light is definitely coming up from here. There's definitely light coming from inside the house. There's definitely a big light source here. There's definitely these light sources here. There's also something off camera that's pushing extra light. You can see the shadow from this. But you definitely really have a strong sense of the light sources. In this one, it feels a little bit vague, and so I'm not quite sure what is causing that light. So it would be a matter of, well, it'd be one of two things. One, you could either switch this around so it's light coming out of this window, and then it's like your one reference where it's light emanating from the house, or you can put like a little object in here, like a little spotlight type of a thing that would maybe be like a landscaping light or something to shine up on the character, just to kind of give it like more direction, because I just see like this shape over top. So I'm actually going to pull in, I think it was Aaron's reference. So if you look again at these float things, you can see that, there's bright spots where the bulbs are, and then the translucency of the leaf over the top of it kind of fades out a little bit. If we look at yours here, like these bulbs are kind of universally bright, so it'd be great if we got like a little hot spot in the middle, and then it would kind of like be a little bit less light around the edges, because it almost looks like they're being illuminated from outside of them, not inside their interior. So just something to be aware of there. And yeah, so those would be the things those would be the main things I would work on for the next iteration. One, finding the opacity in the grass so that we're not seeing like these square planes. Number two, figuring out a location for this warm underlight. Is it inside the house? Is it coming up from beneath him? If so, we'll need to see a little bit of like the source of that light, like kind of a bright hit. And number three is I want you to work on the look of these lamps. If they're on, I want it to feel like these don't have to be clear glass orbs, but I want to feel that there's a bright spot in the middle of a light bulb, and then we can talk about the light coming out from there. I think that'll be a good step for you there. Your other one is this spiral image, which is very cool. We've got your reference. Like this tight spiral across the face is really nice, but the things I want to point out in these two images is the amount of like specular light that's on the fill side. See it in there, like that's really helping define the shape of the face. Also, there's a little bit of specular light here. That really is helping us add variation in our shadow area. So in CG, it would just be a matter of putting in a light that has the diffuse turned off and the specularity turned on from the light source, and then it would create just some more shaping and more like specularity in the fill sides of the face. Because I say that with the idea that what I'm seeing here is nice focus of the diffused light, but we want to see some more of that specularity in the fill to get more shaping in there. I do like you've done a really good job of pushing the light stronger and creating stronger light to dark fall offs, which is really nice. Watch out for this. This appears to be kind of sneaking over the edge of this couch. Same thing here and over here. I would expect it to kind of be back behind there. And then there's something wacky going on with his pajamas, right? Like this is a weird line where these are brighter than this, and then this lapel is brighter than this one, and which is like this is now brighter than this. So just make sure there's not any kind of weird light linking going on in there, because something goofy's happening there. I'm not really sure what it is without looking at the file. Yeah, let's see. We'll check the reference one more time. See, I think that was it. And then if you want to, you can go even like a little bit smaller with that, because it is kind of nice the way that this just like cuts across the character. It almost feels like a David Bowie lightning bolt at this point. So just, I mean, you totally don't have to if you'd rather not to, but I think you might be able to get away with like the light in like this region. We can kind of lose some of that, but I'll leave that up to you. Cat, good stuff. So glad. Of course, I love that it seems like you attacked your new system a little bit too hard and overwhelmed it. I think that's a sign of your excitement, and that's a good thing. Soft shadows are looking great. I think the big thing for you to work on for your next iteration is to manage the very bright points. So we've got a few bright points in the image. We got his shoulder here. We've got this here. We've got that up here. We've got this side of his face. I think the area that should be the brightest is his face, because that's really what we want to read in on. So I think that you could potentially push his face a little bit brighter, especially in the specular, because the diffuse is very bright, but I'm not seeing a lot of specular hits. And then tone down these areas a little bit, just like a teeny tiny bit, to ensure that that's the brighter area. And then I think that will be in a little bit of a better place. But yeah. And then and we were talking about the cigarette too earlier. Make sure the tip is a little bit grayed out, and then just make sure it's kind of fiery around the edge, right as that point is there. But yeah, love the camera angle. Everything else is working really well. Looking forward to seeing your next iteration, and stop breaking your new toys. Yeah, see how like her face is slightly brighter than everything else, and allows us to read that. So even though there's like bright hits on her jacket and on the bench and on her hand, it's not as bright as what we're seeing on her face, and we really kind of zero in there. That's a good example of that. All right, Rick, I caught you mid-render, I think. So her skin is now, I think if the last iteration was to go warmer with the skin tone, I think we've overcorrected. She's a little bit on the orange side, a little red-orange right now. So I would just go ahead and grab her and pull that back slightly. Really, it just might be a matter of her just being overly, overall, just too saturated. Not making that look that much better, but I think, it's a really strong bit of, yeah, it's the saturation in her skin has gotten to the point where it's kind of, you can see here in the original, it's kind of overtaking everything, and then it's almost like she's painted this more saturated color. So I would tone that back a little bit. That would be number one. Yeah, I think that would be the big one, is to find. Oh, I don't have it up, but go back to your original reference, or find some reference of skin tone that you would like to match to, and then have that up right next to her in the composite, so we can take a look at it and really, really dial it in. And then you could even do a separate render pass of just some specularity on her skin, because I think that in some of these regions, now that we're getting like a little bit broader light, we're starting to lose the specularity, and it's all kind of diffuse. So I would just try and work that in just a little bit more. And I'd have to check this once it's integrated, but I kind of want a little bit more of, see if like a little bit more in these areas, to the left and right, if I could get a little bit more in shadow. Because it's just like the flowers in there are looking a little bright based on the surroundings. Shane, this is very funny. I love the Godzilla references in there. This one also makes me think of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man from the original Ghostbusters. And yeah, it's really fun. It's a really fun structure. I think you're gonna have a lot of fun with this one. So the biggest thing out of the gate was okay. When we're seeing something at an unusual scale, we need to really, really hit home that is an unusual scale. So looking at your reference, we see a lot of spotlights shining up. All the light is coming from underneath. So feeling like this underglow from this kind of the combination of the street lamps and these spotlights coming in. But these spotlights are cool. Like, look how they're just like able to pick up little rim light areas around his body. So I think we could kind of do the same. So if you simulate some more spotlights on him, You can use those almost like you run past them, and now they're just kind of hitting like little rims on them. And then you can have street lights or other ambient lights in the city really lift them up from underneath, because you don't want, if your character is the biggest thing in the scene, what you want is all the light to come underneath, because you don't want to feel like there's something that can outreach them and be up above them, because if there is, then everybody might not be in as much danger. So really think about all the light sources and everything coming up from beneath. In terms of the character, they are off to a good start. They look really fun. If you want them to feel like they're in peril or in danger or they're scared, I would brighten them up to the point of being too bright, right here in the foreground. And because that extreme brightness will really kind of play up their worry and their concern. This guy's really the one I'm looking out for. He looks just too scared to run, so I hope he ends up okay. And then in terms of, so we got light coming up. You really want to emphasize the specular highlight coming across this too, like the kind of, you want it to, because right now it looks like a big creature that's just kind of painted like sushi. Because we're missing that like specular sheen, that smoothness, that like the fishiness of sushi. Like we want to feel like there's a specular fishy shimmer on it. But really great stuff. If you want, you can add, although that might just be in a background plate, but you can paint them in. It would be nice to see a little more life in the city, some more lights on in the windows and that kind of thing. But this is going to be a lot of fun. I think you're gonna have fun with this. I keep saying that. It's a fun scene. I love this scene. All right, Ubaid. Biggest thing I want you to work on is that there is something in the image that is darkening, or that is lifting the black points. Like if I just look at his hair right here, like this should be darker in here. But if I color pick this, it's kind of gray. If I color pick this area under the blanket, you can see it's also kind of a lifted gray value. I want those to go darker. So that would be step one. Step two, he's got some bags under his eyes, and I would like to see if we can. I mean, if that's part of your story, cool. But like, it looks like it's just some gnarly shadows under his eyes, and I would try and clean that up a little bit, a little more frontal fill light, or just like a little more fill light to kind of fill in that area. This is looking good. The key light's looking a lot better. I think key light's in a good spot overall. I like that we have more value in the wall back here, but I think you may have pushed it too much, so I would pull back again, split the difference, and then just because like this is the same as the windowsill, it's the same as everything else, I would just make the windowsill white. That would be my suggestion there. And yeah, let's go from there. And let's see if we can't... I wonder if there's a way to flank the light just around him in your scene. So I found that really helpful with mine, was to try and get these areas in shadow on the outside so we can really kind of zero in on the center there. And same thing with your framing. It might be good, instead of this vertical line to kind of cut through him a little bit, if it just nudged over here just a touch more. Again, super low priority, but just a thought we would like to have considered. Okay, that is it for this week, everybody. So I hope you guys had a great one. Your images are constantly improving. It's been so much fun to work with you this week, as it is always. And I look forward to seeing you again on Monday. All right, have a great weekend, everyone, and happy lighting.